I have a question for all of you. What does law mean to you? What do you associate it with? My personal answer would be 3 adjectives. Number 1, intriguing. Number 2, thought-provoking. And last but certainly not least, number 3, essential. Now, I'm well aware that these 3 adjectives were probably not the ones that you came up with, especially intriguing and thought-provoking. However, what you should have come up with is essential, because law is essential and it is all around us. Well, you may ask yourself, but how is it essential? Why is it essential? Well, take a look at the screen behind me. Take a few seconds to read this excerpt. Do any of you understand what it says? What it means? Probably not, and that is totally okay. This is a small part of an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, an essential part for any new invention or any new idea that you may have. During the pandemic, we had a lot of free time, as all of you know, so what happened was that naturally people came up with new ideas. So consequently, there were new companies, new businesses, and new startups that were being launched. What is one document that is essential for keeping any new idea under wraps? An NDA. You see, law is all around us, whether you realize it or not. Amongst my peers, law gets a very bad reputation. There are 2 main reasons for this. Number 1, my peers, adolescents, don't really understand what law is all about. They don't understand legal concepts. They don't understand law. And number 2, they're misinformed. They're not well informed. So naturally, if you're misinformed because of misinformation, it would lead to you not researching it alone, whether it is a topic, a subject, whatever it is. If you're misinformed, it wouldn't make sense for you to research it, unless, of course, you have a motive to do so. By a show of hands, how many of you know what jaywalking is? Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what it is when a pedestrian, so a person, crosses the street carelessly. For example, if a pedestrian crosses the street without using the designated crosswalk. This may seem something that you do on an everyday basis or something that is not as serious. However, in many places, this is illegal. Jaywalking is illegal. Such places include the United States or even Japan. So, this law isn't common. People don't know about it. However, this exact lack of information, misinformation about this small law is the reason why you would get fined. For some of you, for a few of you, $100 to $200 will probably not seem like a big deal, but it is totally unnecessary to have to pay this fine merely because you're misinformed about something. For most of you, however, this money, this sum, would probably make an impact on your life negatively because you probably have to pay rent, pay off debts, loans, whatever it is. You need this money and you would give it out because of a fine, because you were fined, because you weren't informed, you were misinformed. Not understanding something, whether this something is a phrase, a concept, a topic, whatever it is, would naturally lead to a person, once again, not researching it on him or her own, but also it will lead to losing interest very, very fast. Most of you are either in high school or have been in high school at some point. And I think this applies to everybody. There is one subject, whether it was because of the teacher, because of the topics that you studied, because any other external factor, this subject was just very boring, uninteresting, not interesting. And what usually happens is you stop paying attention to your teacher, you start doing other things, for instance, checking your phone, doing homework or assignments for other classes. And the result is always the same. due to a lack of information because you didn't pay attention, you don't know your material, you don't know the topics that you have covered, you aren't well informed. You see, such classes usually are something that are inevitable. So for instance, if one class that you know you won't need until the rest of your life, so for instance, if you want to go into a medical career, English and languages will probably not be as useful as science-related subjects or math. So these subjects that are not as important, you would practically drop. You wouldn't try as hard. And many people think that that is okay. However, the difference with law is that you can't drop it. Law is not like a normal high school class. Law is something that you will need until the rest of your life in one way or another. Everything. I mean everything from our everyday lives, like crossing the street, as I said before, or even buying clothes from your favorite stores gets regulated as a result of laws. Law is all around us. And even if I'm only 16 years old, I can tell you one thing that probably most of you have realized at one point or another. Whether it is applying for university, buying a house, or applying for a bank loan, every single one of these activities requires paperwork. And paperwork is something that people hate because of two reasons. It is very, very time-consuming, and it is not understandable. And usually, it is not understandable because of legalese. For any of you who don't know what legalese is, it is basically the legal language. So when this legal language is very complex, many people like you and like me don't understand it unless we have a degree or a lot of experience in this particular field. What if the legal world was simplified? What if it was more accessible for regular people with regular struggles that don't have a degree? There are many, many things that were done to fix this problem. For instance, there are many companies and organizations that indeed help regular people with regular struggles, namely understanding these documents, in the following way. They simplify it, they make it easier, they make it more accessible. Now is the time to acknowledge the Legal Writing Institute and other such companies that help us. They make our lives easier. This is a great step in the right direction, don't get me wrong. However, I believe that more can be done, more should be done. I thought long and hard while preparing for my TEDx speech, and I came up with a solution that I think could help everyone, could benefit everyone. What if there were classes taught in high school all over the globe, so they would be accessible for every single high school student, that teach us about the different career paths that we could potentially take? So, for example, I'm interested in law, and I can learn about law. If you're interested in medicine, you can do that. If you're interested in psychology, you can also do that. I, as a high school student, think that these classes are very, very important and they're essential, they're necessary. Consider this. We spend around 8 hours at school. However, these 8 hours don't include all of the hours that we spend on homework, on assignments, on clubs, extracurricular activities, and other things that we practically do in school or are connected in one way or another to school. So these 8 hours and all of these hours connected to these other things connected to school exceed the normal workday of a normal adult. The normal workday, for anyone who doesn't know, it is around 8 hours. So we spend this time, so much energy, so much time at school. I think that schools should be the ones that provide us with this knowledge. Schools should be the ones that make us more intelligible, make us more well-rounded. And I'm not talking about classes that are like AP classes, which usually take place in the United States. So you prepare for an exam, you study a set amount of topics, and then these topics come on your exam. I'm talking about normal high school classes that are accessible for everyone, where we could study about things that we could do in our lives after high school. Because one of the biggest struggles that a high school student has is deciding what they want to be, what they want to become. Law is very specific. All of the legal systems are also very specific. One of the most basic examples is the Constitution. So, for anyone who doesn't know, in Bulgaria, we have a constitution. So this is an official document that outlines basic principles and laws. England, United Kingdom, on the other hand, doesn't have a constitution. This is something very basic that I learned during a course outside of school. However, I'm well aware that not everybody has the opportunity to do legal internships, to do extracurricular activities that are outside of school. We spend so much time at school by itself, so I think change should be made in school, the place where we spend most of our time at. These classes would look like this. This is how I envision them. There would be mandatory topics. So, for example, the most essential thing that we should know is our rights. So what we can do, what we can't do, what we would get in trouble for, things like that. And then we could learn about our own legal system. So how the legal system in Bulgaria, for example, works. And then there would be optional classes. If you want to study and learn about criminal law, you can do that. If you want to learn about corporate law, which is my area of interest, you can also learn about that. You could choose topics which are interesting to you and that you think would be essential to making you a well-rounded person, a well-rounded citizen. We are the future of our economy, of our country, and of our world. I think that it is up to us to be intelligent and to be well-rounded. If you don't have basic knowledge about law, this can't really be achieved because you can't escape law. Even if you want to, you can't. It will come up one or another time in your life. Schools should be the initiators of change. Schools should be the ones that teach us about the inevitable field of law. I propose that you start researching your rights, of course, if you don't know them, until, of course, schools actually listen to my amazing idea. And be a proud citizen. Be a proud citizen of your country. Thank you.